Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup, and we're going to kick things off with this week's X-Men books, Avengers books, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy. And starting things off, we'll be looking at Sword #1. Sword spins out of the recently completed Ten of Swords crossover, as well as Empire. Now, SWORD stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. They were introduced. The organization was initially introduced way back in Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. Basically, they were kind of they were a sister organization to SHIELD. Whereas SHIELD focused more on goings on Earth and protecting the people of the Earth from goings on from terrestrial issues, SWORD protected the Earth from extraterrestrial issues. But they also sometimes occasionally worked with extraterrestrials, and sometimes they did so in a manner that was actually, that didn't help the people of Earth. But yeah. Not the point. Anywho, their base was a large space station called the Peak, which Cable it turned out Cable was able to power with the light of with his sword, with his Space Knight sword. After a science experiment gone wrong destroyed the last crew, the X-Men ended up using said experiment to turn the tide of battle against the forces of Arakko at the conclusion of the Otherworld tournament. Anywho, we begin with a quote from Abigail Brand, the director of SWORD. "This is what comes next." Now, it should be noted that that's actually something, if I remember correctly, in the little fast forward sequence we did see at the end of the Avengers epilogue to Empire. If I remember correctly, that's what she says to Hulkling, seemingly right before killing him. So we begin the Peak. A ship is approaching. Also, the Peak has had Krakoan technology integrated within, so it's now biomechanical, kind of, sort of. But we get we find out just who all is. We get a listing of who all is in charge of what. The Peak Station Commander is Abigail Brand. The Council representative that they'll be dealing with mostly is Magneto. Then we've got WizKid working in technology and engineering. He's a station technologist. Manifold, Quintitian, the son of a Gateway, if I remember correctly, in logistics. His teleport team is Blink, Lila Cheney, Gateway, Vanisher, and Amelia Vaught. Energy resources, we've got Fabian Cortez. Diplomacy and negotiation, we have Ambassador Extraordinary Frenzy, as well as Ambassador in Training Armor. Also present is the Galactic Ambassador for the Kree-Skrull Alliance, Pybok the Power Skrull. Security, Director of Security is Cable. His sub-directors are Random and Risque. First off, it's really cool seeing Random back. Observation analysis, there's a psychic analyst, but we don't know who it is. And then visual analyst is Peeper. So the sphere arrives at the Peak and turns out to be it's Magneto, having just basically built taken some metal, made a sphere around himself, and powered itself, taking it up to the space station on its own. He's met with by Cable, and upon arriving, Magneto begins to move the station with his powers, explaining that he conducting an inspection while moving a 1,000-ton space station into place. Magneto adds he also plans to walk and chew some gum too. Then Brand shows up and asks Magneto why not take a gate. He explains, it's good to travel a harder road sometimes. After all, if we were tested our limits, we might assume we had some. Which I gotta say, that is one of the most Magneto things I've ever read. So yeah. But yeah, he gets shown around and he meets WizKid, who is seemingly floating around in one of Charles's old hover chairs. And truth be told, while WizKid is absolutely floored to meet Magneto, Magneto is just as thrilled to meet WizKid. And we also get a rundown of what's going on in space. A massive galactic economic crash that has destroyed the common currency. Snark War, an unstoppable alien war of succession that could destabilize the galactic peace, as started in the last two issues of Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's something roaming through space, killing and eating whole planets. And it's not Galactus. It's not. She's talking about not. But Brand explains that even for all the advances mutants have made lately, they're still, Earthers. They think Earther thoughts, thinking in terms of nations. She, however, is a spacer. Spacers think in solar systems, worlds and stars, and Sword has to speak on that level. They can't only speak for the Krakoa; they have to speak for Soul. I wonder if that includes speaking for the Orcus station in orbit around the sun. That is likely still there. In Diplomatic Suite 1, codenamed the Stranger Room, Frenzy is delivering an ass whooping to Pybok. But it's ceremonial combat, so it's all good. Pybok is impressed with the Hollow Arena. It shows a keen understanding of the nuances of ceremonial combat. He will make his recommendations accordingly. However, and while Brand would like for the Emperor to come visit the station, there are certain issues. And, Krakoa being the main backer of Sword does present an issue concerning someone they've listed as an enemy of the state. The Emperor's mother-in-law, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. But Pybok, apparently this is the first time Pybok's met Magneto, and states, you're tell the Master of Magnetism, an Earther who bends steel with a thought, but not, it seems, his own. And he asks if Frenzy knows Magneto, and she explains that once upon a time, she all but worshipped him. But she moved on. On their way to the observation deck, Brand and Magneto run into Fabian Cortez, prostrating himself in front of Magneto once again. That's what he does. Either prostrate himself or stick a dagger in his back. Depends on the day of the week. Well, okay, he only really did that once, but yeah. And it's explained that he was picked because, well, slim pickings, short notice. They're trying to find something better for the position. And it turns out that Peepers and Magneto have a long-standing old friendship, which they rekindle immediately. And, well, Fabian watches and he's kind of, he's kind of like, oh, well, damn. But so the six get their thing, get all our teleporters together, linking together much in the same way the five do. Fabian Cortez's role is kind of similar to Hope's role within the five. Kind of enhancing and helping everyone work together. Armor is there to basically protect everyone, and so we get there's a write-up on mutant technology, and it's explained that the six in this case consist of 5 teleporters and an additional 5 teleporters. So here, the breakdown of for the 5 teleporters are: you have Blink, and it's the Age of Apocalypse. From the looks of it, it's the Age of Apocalypse Blink, but I think it'll be explained soon enough, I'm sure. I'm guessing it's the Age of Apocalypse one, as she does have the facial markings, but it's also a possibility that maybe someone just said, oh yeah, Blink, and that's what the character looks like. Okay, so we'll see. Though, damn, now I kind of want to dig out Generation Next to see if maybe 616 Blink had the facial markings too. Anyway, but you got Blink, Lila Cheney, Gateway, Vanisher, and Amelia Vaught. Selected for ability and availability. Other teleporters will act as backup should the need arise. The second stage of the circuit is the 6. You have the Control, WizKid, high-level technopath with the adaptability necessary to align and adjust mutant circuits in operation. His backup is Forge. The Power is Fabian Cortez, Energy Augmenter, provides the boost required for circuit operation inside the Redacted. Backup, Redacted, no name given. The Shield, Hisako Ichiki, armor, generates a protective exoskeleton that once aligned with the power and the control, extends the entire circuit. Backup, Sally Blevins, Skids. The Guide, Eden Fessy, Manifold. Space Folder or Quintition, uniquely able to both navigate the Redacted and assist in formatting the Redacted once there. Backup, none as yet. The Eye, Peter Quinn, Peeper. Broad spectrum telescopic, microscopic, spectroscopic vision, able to discern the Cureborn particles that form the Redacted. Backup, Doc. Finally, the Foundry, Gloria Munoz, aka Risque. Implosive field generator condenses Redacted from the high density Cureborn fields found inside the Redacted. Backup is Shen Zorn. But the operation is explained to be as such: unified by the control. The first stage circuit, which would be the teleporters, acts as a resource anchor for the Guide, allowing him to translocate the entirety of the second stage circuit while saving his energies for the retrieval work. The second stage circuit arrives at the staging platform constructed by previous second stage operations at the redacted, and then the power strengthens the shield. The shield protects the six. The six stand at the shore. This far shore, this farthest point of all, and then farther still, into the mystery. And so they teleport out, armored up, courtesy of armor. Able to see thanks to peepers. Then they find a small pyramid, which Manifold takes. And it turns out that Magneto has been repositioning the peak so that it's a geosynchronous orbit with Krakoa. But the six return, and Manifold explains that they made it back, and they brought it back. With WizKid explaining it's not radioactive, it's cooled, and can even be held. And upon seeing this, Magneto explains that Commander Brand was right. SWORD is the mutant space program. But what she's building there, it goes beyond anything he ever dreamed, and he doesn't have a word for it. But she simply says, "This is what comes next." The issue ends with a quote from none other than Dr. Victor Von Doom. Ruler of the sovereign nation of Latveria, long may he reign, blah blah blah. You have stolen fire from heaven to hold in your hands. How could I object? I've done the same myself, with one significant difference. I wore gloves. Be careful. And that is where the issue ends. Not a bad first start to SWORD. Our first post Ten of Swords title, or X title. But we must be moving on, however, to Marauders number 16. So, before the contest, where we had left off, a quick recap of what happened before Ten of Swords and Marauders, basically. Sebastian Shaw, the Black King of Hellfire Bay, in his position as the person in charge of dealing with the black market, arranged the assassination of the Red King, Kate Pride. Partially because he had been hoping to place his son, Shinobi Shaw, in the role of Red King instead. Well, here's the thing though. Lockheed survived. And so, yeah, he knows what happened. Passed along to some of the others. And, yeah, Kate has been planning something. So we begin with a quote from Queen Kate. "I will live again only to kill you, and when I return, you will beg for my blade." The issue begins with a meeting between the Red Bishop, and Storm. Apparently Bishop found some vines from Kate's remains. There's only one place in the world where those vines grow. As Storm puts it, a sleepy knoll within walking distance of Hellfire Bay. And so Bishop figures so what happens then? Because he's on the council, the Black King just gets away with it, but Storm simply says that no, he doesn't. And so, Emma and Kate head to Hellfire Bay. Basically, storm in. Emma shoots Shaw with a power disruptor gun. And he gets an ass whooping. Also, Kate does do some damage to his whiskey supply, or his whiskey collection. But yeah. But Shaw explains that they should both be thanking him. And he explains that Emma asked him to help build a nation for mutants. Then they offer a chair at Hellfire and a council seat to a woman who might not have even been a mutant. They didn't know who Kitty really was. He actually makes fun of it. He gets promptly slapped for calling Kate Kitty, however. But he does, correct himself. So now she's aware she is a mutant. The only thing that was robbed from her was doubt. But Kate doesn't point out she's not the only aggrieved party. Loki demanded blood, and Storm demanded to be a witness. But it turns out that Emma did some negotiating with Lockheed. He'll get a taste of what he wanted. And Lockheed attacks Shaw and actually bites out his eye. And he says his own thing. This is a bit excessive. And she, after he explained that. Explained that the Black Bishop will now serve the countries that recognize Krakoan sovereignty. The Red Queen will service the black market. And Lockheed taking his eye is not Sebastian's punishment. The dram he just drank a glass of was laced with the Verendi poison. If he's dead, he'll go into resurrection protocols, and Storm will make sure that he stays there for a good long while. With Emma adding that Krakoa will see her sister Cordelia restored before Sebastian is returned to them. And because, of course, Kate does, Kate keeps one in her pocket. She pulls an eye patch out and puts it on Shaw. The next day at the council, Storm, Emma, Kate, and Shaw arrive. Shaw being brought in one of Charles' old chairs. Mainly, they're going to discuss who takes the now open seats on the council, as both Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, and Apocalypse are no longer members of the council. Emma has a few favorites, but it is suggested that perhaps they can discuss what's happened to Shaw. And Kate says, there's no need to talk about that unless you want to put it to a vote. The vote ends up being a tie with Xavier, Magneto, Sinister, Exodus, and Nightcrawler voting yes. Mystique, Storm, Emma, Sebastian, and Kate all voting no. But Shaw says that they're deadlocked. And obviously his body's been hurt, but his spirit is not dimmed. In any state, he adds that in any state he remains Krakoa's humble servant. And at the end, we end with a quote from Kate. "Thank you for your gift, Sebastian," which I think was actually in the issue where she was brought back, and they had the little party. And he brought her. He actually did bring her a gift. Maintain appearances. I don't entirely buy what he was selling with that excuse, but yeah, he did also state that if he had known that Verendi would be poisoning the medicines that they were getting, he wouldn't have worked. He probably wouldn't have worked with them. Moving on over to Juggernaut number 4. When we left off at Juggernaut, a recent trial for Juggernaut, basically, Juggernaut saying, "Yeah, hey, I've done some bad stuff, and I'm not the Hulk, okay? The Hulk, more often than not, all the stuff he's destroyed, it ain't because he meant to. It's because it was there, and he wasn't in a clear headspace. All the stuff I've destroyed, though, I was in a clear headspace. I knew exactly what I was doing. So." But the trial was interrupted by a villainess by the name of Quicksand, who was being controlled by Arnim Zola. Yeah, the Nazi. So, Juggernaut, D-Cell, some of the damage control people head to North Dakota to deal with Zola and his people. Zola's operating out of an old Factor 3 base built into a mountain, and so Juggernaut goes in after him and is promptly attacked by Primus, a malleable plastic android created by Zola. Zola has a new, larger, more cryptic-looking body. He's trying to get his hands on D-Cell because it's hard to get one's hands on mutant DNA anymore. Sure, he's got plenty of troll and elf genetics to muck around with after the recent War of the Realms, but yeah. We then get a flashback to the point when Juggernaut got the crystal back. He stormed a storage facility, ONE, after getting the armor, smashed through it, found the remains of the Juggernaut, which chips and dust, as it was crushed back in Uncanny X-Men number 21. But he basically inhales the chips and dust and goes full Juggernaut. Back in the present, they realize they're not hearing anything from Juggernaut, so the damage control people figure something must be wrong, but D-Cell says, hey, he needs help. Jumps out of the chopper, uses her deceleration waves to slow herself down, realizes she probably should have, practiced that one for a while first. And she basically walked right into Zola's trap. It's realized that her feelings of duress seem to disrupt her powers, so the idea is to keep her under duress. And then we flash back to months ago when Juggernaut faced with Satorak. Told him, in my name, unleash destruction. And Kane said no. Explaining he's not Satorak's avatar anymore. He's not linked to Satorak. The harness he's wearing is made from bands of Satorak that existed in the earthly plane. Cytorek's ability to access the gem is gone, and Cytorek is cut off from any links to a human host on Earth. And he basically explains that he's got the power, but he's not beholden to Cytorek, and he's finally free. And so Juggernaut busts out of the cell that Zola and Primus put him in, takes down Primus, freezing him. Takes down Zola, who did manage to get his hands on a blood sample. And explain they're going after a place known as the Dungeon, a for-profit supervillain prison. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book for this week. Avengers number 39. And yes, this is another flashback issue. This time telling us the origin of the Phoenix of the Avengers of 1 million BC. Basically, she was born with 1 million years ago, red hair, and taken out to what's known as the burnt place, left to die. There were carrion birds eyeing her, waiting for that to happen to, chow down when the wolves showed up. Ran off the birds. And the wolves raised her. She was literally raised by wolves. Occasionally she would go back to the burnt place. Find others who were similarly different. For example, at one point, the young redheaded telepathic girl comes upon a baby with one eye. Redheaded telepath, Cyclops. Where have we seen that before? Okay, I know. That's kind of the whole point. But then a telepathic telekine shows up, asking her not to hurt him, explaining that he saw when her people left her at the burnt place. It's just the first time she ever heard words before. It took her for a while to realize that she was hearing them in her head, not her ears, though. And so she talks with the guy who seems to be a bit, physically speaking, lame. Not everything's working right. A somewhat disabled telepath. Again, that sounds really familiar too. Don't know why though. But she leaves the wolves and goes on with him. And there are others with gifts of their own. There's a stretchy guy. There's a fish person. There's a molten person. There's a cat person. Yeah, all kinds of. But the young girl came to call the telepathic telekine Highwalker. But of course, they were attacked by men. So basically Highwalker tells everyone to leave. But Firehair realizes that these people, they'll hunt us forever. So she goes back to help Highwalker and distracts him. And his shield falters and he dies. So then the rest of his people go after the humans, and both groups are killed, except for Firehair. She then returns to the burnt place, and lays down to be, hoping to be killed. The buzzards are there. Suddenly the buzzards catch flame, and an even bigger bird made of flame comes to her. charring the people who abandoned her. And she goes to speak to. She goes back to the wolves that raised her, speaks with them. And really, she's the buzzard now, but she can be better than that. The world can be better than that. On Asgard, Odin is regretting his decision to have put a mother storm inside of the Uru hammer. He recently forged Uru hammer known as Mjolnir. When the Lady Phoenix arrives, explains to him she is the Phoenix, and he may call her such. She's putting a team together to save the world from itself and from people like the two of them. Asks if she's in. And that is where the issue ends. That's actually kind of neat. I really dug the kind of parallels to there having been a 1 million BC X-Men as well. In fact, it cracks me up there was a 1 million BC X-Men before there was a 1 million BC Avengers. Moving on, we've got Captain Marvel number 24. Where we left off, in the future of Captain Marvel the End, Carol Danvers and the survivors working with her had just met Ove, the mysterious villain they've been facing for a while now, who bore a striking resemblance to none other than Namor. And Ove is extremely charming. Turns out he's also half Asgardian. He is Namor's son, as his mother, and his mother is Asgardian. Basically, hey, yeah, the finest, you got some, you think it's more finer rooms, but they always, no, we'll stay in one room altogether. We're used to that. So, well, very well. Carol's invited to dine with Ove. And he explains what happened. Or he explains his past, how he was the son of Namor and Asgardian. Namor fought alongside the heroes in during their first big war, but between the first and second, which happened before he was born, Namor grew dissatisfied with what he saw. Some claim that he saw in the tragedy a destiny of sorts. The humans could not survive the latest threat, but Atlantis could. So he made preparations to ensure the survival of Atlantis, so that someday his progeny would have a kingdom to inherit. But the humans did lose their war, and so Atlantis survived, and in fact, some might even say it thrived. And when he was young, a rogue faction fought against Namor. When Ove was 16, that rogue faction, which had grown into a genuine rebellion a year previously, murdered his father. And so Ove and his mother escaped. In fact, they found the former Thunderbolt known as Jolt. We've also learned that others are Armor and Crystal are also helping out with the defense of New Atlantis, though they haven't made it. But after the stories are all told, Carol returns to the room, and the rest of our heroes are making a plan. Carol and Emma and Rhodey's daughter discover magic locked away. Apparently magic brought Carol there. She tried to avoid doing anything like that, but apparently Ove needs Carol. However, Ove and his mother show up along with demons from Limbo and mind-controlled heroes, to take down well, the heroes. Also, we find out that O's mother is none other than the Enchantress. Yeah. Something tells me that rogue faction was set into motion by her. Just a guess. However, our heroes are defeated by Ove and his forces, and in fact, a mind-controlled Luke Cage beats the holy hell out of Carol. When she comes to, she's locked. She's chained to some kind of altar. Apparently, though, she is the key to Ove's future, and that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to this video, the last book for this video. Guardians of the Galaxy, number 9. Where we left off with this particular portion of Guardians, Peter Quill, Nova, Rocket, Hercules, a few others had gone after if I remember correctly, it was extra-dimensional versions of the Olympian gods. Or he was resurrected. Basically, they were being douches. So, they went to teach him a lesson, and they tried to destroy the ship that they were using. The Guardians tried to destroy the ship they were using, but the remote for the bomb had been destroyed. So, the only option was for Peter to use his element gun to detonate the bomb, seemingly dying in the process. So, first off, we learn the origin of Star-Lord. 30 years ago, Meredith Quill met a man who fell from the stars. Their love produced a child named Peter Jason Quill. 20 years ago, Peter's mother was murdered by aliens. He was left with a mysterious weapon of unearthly origin, the element gun. 12 years ago, Peter met and was trained by the space pirate Yondu and his gang. Armed with the element gun left to him by his father, he found a new life and purpose in outer space as the legendary Star-Lord. Now, constantly, a couple times in that second paragraph, instead of it saying Space Pirate Yondu and his gang or his father, instead it said the Master of the Sun, but that was crossed out. The Master of the Sun does not exist. The Master of the Sun has never existed. If you are having dreams or visions of the Master of the Sun, initially it says you have been selected, but that's crossed out. It says you have false memories which are to be ignored. He is not as he seems. Are you? Also crossed out. Now, read on. It looks like, but yeah, the Master of the Sun speaks to Peter, saying, Peter Jason Quill, you were selected. Rarely is the opportunity offered. Then he comes to, after the death of his mother, he's given his space toy, the element gun. Explained that the weapon is invincible. The one weakness in working his will, in Peter working his will, is Peter. But it turns out that the charge of the element gun had been depleted, so he switched it to recharge from all available sources, including the holy fire of the Olympians, and that's what he used to fire at the bomb. And the Master of the Sun explains that perhaps he is not what he seems, and Peter shall be made into a Star-Lord. He is free of his past life, free to form a new life if he wishes, to complete himself. So he waits after 12 days, nude, but still with his gun handy, so, whoever is probably friendly. And he gets his first visitor. Moors. And then the second visitor, Aradia, who explains that Peter's in the land of Morris. Means the world beyond the sun in old tongue. But Aradia and Moors are nomads, unaffiliated with 12 houses. They just keep moving and help out where they can. Which is kind of what Peter does, anyway. So Peter joins them. But Aradia, just say, hey, you okay, yeah, you work with us, but, you can join us, too. But he's like, no, hey, that's your way, I got my way, I got someone waiting on me. So, I'm gonna remain faithful to that someone. Well, all right. Time continues on. 3 years, 12 years and 12 days. And after 12 years, Peter decides, yeah, he's not returning to his old life. And in the gateway, he declares himself home. And he joins Aradia and Moors. Years upon years go by. Over 100. And then the Olympians attack for 143 years. And their attack continues until the following year, 144 years. But at the sacred pool, he explains he gets it. The ceremony he went through after 12 years, that was about choosing to stay. Nobody ever wants to go through the gate. That's the big secret. But now he needs to. The only way that Zeus will leave this world be is if he's chasing Peter. And so, he goes through the gateway, comes out. A world full of dead people. As well as a talking raccoon in a suit. And a space cop. And one of Null's symbiote dragons. And that is where the issue ends. So this was basically bringing Peter back before the King in Black tie-ins begin. That's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.